A model tragically and mysteriously falls from a ninth-floor window. Was this just an accident, or is there something more sinister going on?
She was called the Russian Rapunzel. A girl so beautiful, the world stopped to stare. But on a warm summer afternoon, that same world watched her fall. They said it was suicide. They said it made sense. But nothing about Ruslana Korshunova ever made sense. Not the smile before she died, not the plans she'd made, and not the silence that followed. This isn't just a story about a fall. It's about what pushed her. The industry, the cult, the loneliness that fame never cured. This is the haunting story of the supermodel who fell from grace. On a bright June afternoon in 2008, 20-year-old supermodel Ruslana Korshunova plunged 9 stories from her New York apartment balcony. Witnesses said she looked like she was flying. Police said it looked like suicide. But those who knew her said nothing about her life made sense. Not the way she smiled days before, not the projects she was planning, and not the way her story vanished from headlines as quickly as she had from the world. This is the story of a girl who conquered the fashion world before she was old enough to rent a car. A girl who lived surrounded by beauty, yet died surrounded by questions. It's the story of Ruslana Korshunova, the supermodel who fell from grace. The fairy tale beginning. Before the lights, before the lenses, she was just Ruslana, a quiet girl from Almaty, Kazakhstan, born in 1987 when the Soviet Union was still breathing its last. She grew up in an ordinary apartment, raised by a single mother who worked long hours to keep them afloat. Ruslana was shy, bookish, gentle. She loved poetry more than mirrors. She dreamed of stories, not runways. At 15, fate found her in the unlikeliest of ways. A fashion editor from Moscow stumbled across her photograph on a school website. The editor was so captivated that she tracked Ruslana down and offered her a modeling contract. One day she was doing homework. The next, she was in Paris. For a girl who had never left Kazakhstan, the world suddenly opened like a flashbulb, dazzling, loud, impossible to refuse. The transformation was instant. The camera adored her. Her face, soft, ethereal, otherworldly, carried the rare mix of innocence and melancholy that photographers live for. Within a year, she was gracing the covers of Vogue, Elle, and Numero. Her long, untamed hair became her signature, earning her the nickname the Russian Rapunzel. Designers whispered her name backstage. Karl Lagerfeld called her a living poem. She was, by all measures, unstoppable, the rise of a star. By the mid-2000s, Ruslana Korshunova was one of the fastest rising faces in fashion. She walked for Vera Wang, Nina Ricci, DKNY, Marc Jacobs. Her presence on the runway was hypnotic, a blend of fragility and quiet power. In photos, she looked like she belonged to another century, a girl painted in oil and brought to life. But behind the perfect images, Ruslana remained strangely untouched by fame. Friends said she still lived modestly, still called her mother every night, still carried her childhood innocence in a world that rewarded everything but innocence. While others lost themselves in luxury, Ruslana stayed grounded, almost too grounded for an industry built on illusion. She once wrote in her online journal, "Sometimes it seems that the whole world is against you. But when you stand alone and face it, it's the moment you learn who you are." To her followers, it sounded poetic. To those who read it later, it sounded like a warning, the shadows behind the smile. In fashion, beauty is both a gift and a curse. It opens doors and locks cages. The life of a model is one of relentless movement. Time zones blur, faces change, silence grows. And for someone as sensitive as Ruslana, the constant pressure of perfection began to crack the edges of her world. Friends noticed the shifts first, the fatigue behind her eyes, the loneliness that lingered after shows. She began writing darker posts on social media, musings about love lost, about searching for meaning, about the emptiness that fame couldn't fill. She wrote, "I'm so lost. Will I ever find myself?" To her fans, it was just another cryptic caption. To those who knew her, it was the beginning of a descent that no one saw clearly until it was too late. The life that looked perfect. In early 2008, Ruslana's career was peaking. She had just returned from Paris Fashion Week, had shot a fragrance campaign, and was planning to visit home. On the surface, everything glittered, but her friends said she had become unusually introspective, talking about leaving modeling altogether, talking about finding real life. New York was supposed to be her fresh start, her escape from the whirlwind. She rented a light-filled apartment on Water Street in Manhattan's financial district. Neighbors described her as polite, quiet, often smiling. No signs of despair, no cries for help. And yet, in those same weeks, she joined a self-help organization rumored to deal with deep emotional conditioning. A group some later called a cult. Its methods involved intense psychological exercises, confronting personal fears, and emotional breakdowns meant to rebuild confidence. Friends said she seemed changed after attending. Some said lighter, others said broken. No one knew which was true. The fall. June 28, 2008. The city was bright, ordinary. Ruslana had just returned from Moscow days earlier, cheerful, excited about new plans. That afternoon, she made phone calls, read emails, and even ordered lunch. And then, around 2:30 p.m., she fell from her balcony. Police reports called it suicide. No signs of struggle, no forced entry. They found her handbag and passport inside, her long hair tangled in the summer air. But the details didn't sit right. Neighbors heard no scream. Her balcony railing was unusually high, almost chest level, and her friends insisted she was happy, planning a trip, looking forward to the future. The tabloids erupted. Angel falls to her death. But within days, the headlines faded, replaced by celebrity gossip and scandals that sold faster. What remained were questions, and the silence of a mother who lost her only child halfway across the world. The theories. To some, it was depression, the pressure of perfection finally consuming her. To others, it was darker, whispers of manipulation, exploitation, control. The self-help group she'd attended denied any link. The agencies offered condolences and moved on. The industry that had once adored her closed its eyes and turned the page. A few journalists dug deeper, noting that several members of the same organization had died under suspicious circumstances. Others pointed to her cryptic online writings, the haunting mix of hope and despair. One of her last entries read, "Love is the sun. If you stop shining, you stop living." Some believed it was a farewell, others, a cry for help never heard, the silence after. In the weeks that followed, Ruslana's death became a whisper. No memorials in Fashion Week, no tributes on magazine covers, just the quiet deletion of a name from schedules and rosters, as if she had never existed. Her mother flew from Kazakhstan to New York to collect her daughter's belongings. She told reporters she was not suicidal. She wanted to live. She had plans. And then she too disappeared from public view, carrying her grief home, to a place where the cameras had never cared to look. Years later, people still stumble across Ruslana's photos. In mood boards, archives, forgotten lookbooks. Her face still circulates online, ageless, serene, frozen in the perfection that betrayed her. But behind those images is a story no camera ever captured. A girl who wanted to be seen for more than beauty, A girl who tried to speak in poems when the world demanded poses. A girl who fell, not just from a building, but from the pedestal that the world built beneath her. What the industry forgot. Ruslana's death wasn't the first, and it wasn't the last. Fashion, for all its beauty, has always lived with ghosts. Behind the fabric and lights are lives measured in seasons, faces that vanish when the next collection arrives, mental health, exhaustion, loneliness, all hidden beneath foundation and flashbulbs. Her story became a cautionary tale whispered backstage, but never spoken aloud in interviews, because to question it was to question the entire machine. The same industry that immortalized her image couldn't bear to face the truth of her ending, because it wasn't just Ruslana who fell, it was the illusion that beauty is enough to keep you safe. Legacy of the Fallen Angel. Today, almost 2 decades later, Ruslana Korshunova's name still haunts the internet. A digital ghost appearing on timelines of nostalgia and tragedy. You can still find her in perfume ads, her smile glowing like a secret, her eyes holding stories we'll never hear. Fans call her the girl who looked like a dream. But dreams are fragile, and reality doesn't forgive the fragile. Every now and then, someone finds her old words, the fragments she left behind online, and realizes how eerily they read like farewells written in poetry. She once wrote, "I'm so afraid of closing my eyes, because when I do, I fall, and I don't know if I'll wake up." Was it metaphor or prophecy? No one knows. All we know is that on that day in June, the fall she feared became real. And in that fall, an entire generation of dreamers learned how high the price of beauty could be. The woman beneath the myth. In the end, Ruslana Korshunova wasn't just a model. She was a girl who loved fairy tales and wrote about angels. She was a daughter who sent flowers to her mother every birthday. She was a friend who talked about writing a book someday. A book about loneliness and light, but she never got to write it. Her story was written for her, in tabloids, police reports, and internet forums. But somewhere beyond all of that, there's another version. The one her friends remember when they look at old photos. The one her mother whispers when she visits her grave. A version where Ruslana didn't fall. She was pushed by a world that saw her only as a reflection, never as a person. The reflection that remains. Every era of beauty has its ghost. A face so perfect, it becomes immortal, and a story so tragic, it becomes a warning. For the 2000s, that ghost is Ruslana Korshunova. Her life reminds us that behind every flawless image lies a fragile soul, that every smile can hide 1,000 silent screams, and that sometimes the brightest lights cast the darkest shadows. The world moved on, as it always does, but her story still lingers. In the quiet corners of the internet, in the hearts of those who remember, in every girl who dreams of being seen and ends up being consumed. She once said, "Love is everything. Without it, we are nothing." Perhaps that's the truest line she ever wrote. Because in a world that loved her image but forgot her heart, she became both, love and nothing. And that's the haunting legacy of the supermodel who fell from grace.